Thank you for tuning in. In this video, I'll be discussing how rappers call on spirits to guide them when creating their music, particularly Jay-Z and Rick Ross and how they channel Notorious BIG. It's Rapmythology, the reincarnation of Ramakrishna, a Hayoka empath, and I'm kicking brand new flavor in your ear, that brand new flavor in your ear. Make sure to push the like button and subscribe. If you feel like the content on my channel is life-changing, feel free to send some of that love energy back by donating $1 on Cash App to Rapmythology. Alright people, so the last video I did, Bad Boy Records Exposed from the Grave, I tapped into BIG's energy and kind of got stuck there. I ended up getting channeled information myself from Notorious BIG. I want to explain to people out there how channeling spirits is an occult practice some rappers do to enhance the level of mastery within their songwriting. Everyone has the potential to do this, and today I'm going to explain how it's done in totality. Now let's define the word channeling to get a clear understanding of what channeling is. The practice of professedly entering a meditative or trance-like state in order to convey messages from a spiritual guide. Another definition I have here of channeling is ESP. In some New Age beliefs, the process by which a person becomes a conduit for a deceased person. How does a rapper channel? Now, every person that is sensitive to the spiritual realm may receive information from a deceased person. Channeling is not done in a seance or with a group of people. It's done on a personal initiative. It can be considered an intimate and private practice. Each person has their own way of tapping into this spiritual awareness. We also call these messages in the spiritual community downloads. Downloads of information that come from the other side. Some people will have visions. Some can hear faint whispers. Some may be telepathic. Others can see spirits. Some people are sensitive to energy fields. Some people have frequent dreams that relay messages to them from the other side. One person may have all these gifts together in one package, but that's usually not the case for most rappers. There are only a select few in the industry that have an adept knowledge of this spiritual practice. Jay-Z is one of the first to describe or encode the practice in his music, titling the spiritual practice Rain Man. Further along in the video, I'm going to name specific songs you can identify and get an idea how this is done. But first, let's watch this Jay-Z interview where he talks a little bit about channeling and how advanced he got with it.
It's funny, like how it came about being a lyricist is weird because I started out technically, like I used to write all the time, you know, before I start going into the Rain Man thing, you know. So I really started out just being technical, and then I got real life experience. So my thing was to tell a story and still, you know, make it rhyme. That became pretty much how I really started. And then I started doing, you know, these different, you know, hidden messages in the music, you know, just as that replaced, you know, the technical aspect of it. And then it just, you know, evolved from there. So I think it's very important, I mean, to add layers into your music. You know, when people can listen like a year later and say, oh man, I just realized you said such and such and such, you know, so it's like a gift that keeps giving. I don't write lyrics down, I just listen to the track and then just go in there and I do it. You know, so it's like a mumbling effect. In Rain Man, he was always mumbling all these numbers, rattling off these amazing numbers. And he was like, I guess, an idiot savant in the movie Dustin Hoffman. So I guess I'm an idiot savant as well. So I don't suggest that for everyone. You know, for me, it was a natural thing. It just was how my life came about. If I could sit down and write every day, I would do it. That's how I started. I started writing every day, you know, and then, you know, as my life, you know, the schedule of my life changed, you know, my process changed, you know. And why I tell them to write every day is like anything else. It's like practice. Basketball players play basketball their whole life. They practice every day. You know, it only makes sense. You know, you can only get better. You know, the repetition. Right. The more you do it, the better you get.
Jay-Z is a very advanced lyricist. I think he may get the melody from the spirit he is channeling, and he may pick up actual rhymes and key word phrases at times as well. I feel that in his case, it's a combination of both techniques.
I just want to
All right, so let's get into how an artist would begin learning the process of doing this. I can tell you based on experience, I'm not a rapper, but I have the gift of channeling. I kind of did it by accident in my case, and that's how I learned I had the ability. So the first thing the artist would have to do is develop a connection to the spirit. Each person may have their own way of developing this connection. You can make an altar or a sacred space for that deceased person you're trying to work with. That might consist of a picture in a frame, up on a wall or on a shelf or on the floor, and you may take it a step further and place offerings around the picture. When I'm saying offerings, I mean symbolic representations of what the deceased person would have liked in real life. You can use the human body as an altar and get a tattoo of the deceased individual to strengthen that connection as well. You want to build a rapport or a bond, if you will, with the deceased person by acknowledging that they are there and talking to them. It may sound a little weird, but that's the basic way to establish a connection to a deceased rapper. Jay-Z and Big were friends in real life, so it just translated over to an etheric friendship after Big passed. The next and probably most common thing to do would be to listen to the deceased rapper's music a lot. You could say even obsessively. This is how I tapped into it. When you listen to a rapper's flow obsessively, you begin to recognize the energy flow of the person's voice. You might want to do this for a month or two. Once you turn the music off after listening to that artist obsessively, the voice, the style, the charisma of the artist will still ruminate in your mind. So when you go to write your own music, it will be with the other artist's style, voice tones. It's like you will take on that spirit's energy to deliver your message. Listening to the deceased rapper obsessively can be a way that this happens accidentally, but it's part of the process of doing it intentionally. After a while, everything will just start to click. From you keeping a dialogue, having an altar or a shrine to that rapper, or an established connection, and constantly listening to the music, you will begin to see the separation between your own ego and the spirit. You will have whole lines and melodies playing out in your mind, and that's where the channeling begins. The more you develop the connection, the easier it gets. So now we're going to play another Jay-Z interview where he explains in a subtle way his musical connection to Biggie Smalls, and even how he used beats that Biggie had stashed away and were in Puffy's ownership. Puffy gave him these beats for his work on the American Gangster album.
When you went into the studio to make this album, American Gangster, there was a buzz about you. Jay-Z's back. He's creating music.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to get involved. People that hadn't been with you for a while, like Diddy.
Yeah.
Comes to you and wants to be the executive producer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you look at him and say, man,
You can't executive produce an executive producer.
Now, what'd you say to him? What was the
That's
conversation?
what I said. You can't executive producer. But he said, man, you're the greatest, all right? But even Michael Jordan had a coach.
That's what he said.
Yeah, he's great.
And you listened to him.
Yeah. What happened was I was going in the house. I was right in front of my house. Yeah. And I got this phone call from him. He was like, come by the studio. And I'm like, man, I'm looking at the door, and I'm like, I could just go in the house and be done with it. You know, but I'm one of them people that believe everything happens for a reason. Right. He called me. He's never called me to come to the studio before.
Not ever in your life?
Mm-mm. So I pull away from my house. I head over to the studio. I get there. He's playing all these lush samples and all this 70s soul music, which relates straight to the movie, because that's the backdrop for this album that I made is set against these soul samples, you know, these things that I've heard growing up. So he's playing all these records, and they're amazing. And I'm like, what are you doing? He said, I'm putting the Hitman back together. You know, he got LV and Sean C., you know, his whole group. Right. And I'm like, but what are you doing all this type of music? Because it was the music that I needed. It was the exact music that, I envisioned in my mind. And he was like, man, I have nobody to give it to. You know, Biggie's not here, and I can't give these to just anybody. And I was like, well,
he thought somebody who had Biggie's power needed.
Yeah.
And you were the one that he thought worthy of it.
Yeah. And So I was like, well, give me all. I said, what do you do with this music? That's the best part. I said, what do you do with this music? He said, man, I just play it in my house and I just run around with my socks on.
So you take it.
So I took these tracks, it's like 30 of them, by the way, it's 30 of them. Then I just start picking apart the best ones and we just start working from there, you know? He didn't executive produce the album, but he was right there. I gave him associate producer credit, you know, and he was very instrumental in the album because he made the foundation to which all the other producers produce into. Because, you know, I would play it for the producer and say, it has to fit in this. It has to sound like this. Sonically, it has to have this sound on it. And the great thing about Puff, what I really realize is he's a great producer. I've always known this, but it brought me back to that time.
Some people think that's what he does best. He thinks that's what he does best.
I think that's what he does best.
He does think that's what he does best.
It made me realize that he's not a good producer, he's a great producer. And he's produced Ready to Die and Life After Death and Mary J. Blige's album, Jodeci's album. And, you know, I start getting these tracks back and I'm like, who's doing this? Yeah. Like, you know, like and he's a director. He's like, it's like Motown over there in my studio. I got horn sessions. I mean, the things that he added after the lyrics was on it. You had to hear the bare tracks. The bare tracks were great tracks, but what he added after it made it a movie and made it complete.
And what was the relevance of Big? Because you and I can talk about him, and I know a bit about him, but what was his...
Such a charismatic, charming, incredible storyteller, likable guy. He's forever loved by hip hop. That's it. It's Biggie.
Because
it's just the way he was. His honesty, his brutal honesty. You know, black and ugly as ever. However, I stay Coochie down to the socks. You know, like he can do that. Like a Richard Pryor, he was in that way, where he can make fun of himself. You know, and he was just such a charismatic person. And we've had that in common for a while, but we always was competitive with each other as well.
In every way, in fashion and music.
Fashion, music, we all in the same business, we're all in the same field. So we competitive, but friendly competitors even along the way. Like when he won a fashion award, you know, I sent them presents. So we would send each other presents and things like that. Him? I would do stuff like I'll send him cigars and Patron on the red carpet. I make sure when he got on the red carpet, you know, somebody came and gave him some, you know, fresh Cuban cigars. No, I'm not trying to show him up. Really, just really.
But you're not trying to top him in toys either, are you?
No. We more so just being competitive. Not even so. I'm better than you. Just better moves, like the execution of something.
A song by Jay-Z that is an illustration of channeling is "Brooklyn We Go Hard." The first verse is Jay-Z being himself. The second verse is Jay-Z channeling Biggie, and in the third verse, Biggie comes through in a different form as his past incarnation, Virginia Hill. Virginia Hill came through the artist Santa Gold. The European sound in that song is inspired by the Jewish Italian gangsters of Brooklyn's past. And you can check out my video, Bad Boy Exposed from Beyond the Grave, to get more info on Biggie Smalls, the reincarnation of Virginia Hill. Alright, now we're going to proceed to Rick Ross. Rick Ross also channeled the Notorious B.I.G. To my knowledge, Rick Ross is not really a street guy, but very musically talented. So when it came to gangster rap, I believe he got a lot of his lyrical concepts from the inspiration of Biggie Smalls. In fact, I got the channeled message that Biggie was the mastermind behind most of Rick Ross's music. It was almost as if Biggie got to keep making his presence known through Rick Ross. Biggie wants to take the credit for Rick Ross. One song in particular that Biggie wanted to be highlighted in this video was the song I Think I'm Big Meech by Rick Ross, which was really encoded and meant I think I'm big. So Biggie said to me in that song, forget Rick Ross is rapping and imagine it's Big performing the song. Then listen how the song relates to Biggie's life more than it does Rick Ross. And this is the song BMF, I Think I'm Big Meech by Rick Ross. One line in that song that Big said to pay attention to was when he said, can't see a nigga, I'm what you used to be. This was Big expressing how Rick Ross is what he used to be when he was alive. Rick Ross also put Styles P on the remix to BMF. Styles was a label mate to Biggie, and this scenario was influenced by Biggie from the other side through Rick Ross, putting Styles P on the track. Interestingly enough, I have footage of Styles P in an interview where he talks about channeling, and we're also going to play that right now. I'm also going to play a short interview by Rick Ross as he pays homage to Tupac and Biggie.
A lot of MCs, without knowing it, channel a lot. I think we channel our ancestors, we channel spirits, we channel gods, we channel other things that's out there. Anything where you have a creative source, you're tapping into something bigger than you, because you're tapping into energy. And it's not just my energy around. Like, so when I'm in a room, it's not just my energy. And I think when you start realizing in life that everything has some sort of energy, and then when you're sitting in the room, you really start tapping into it all. Like, and you start really, like, I always tell you guys on the side, I respect what you do, how you do it.
Right.
Because you play with words. Your job is to play with words and be able to put out a creative article or pull out a great interview from someone else, and you have to use words to do that. So any job where you're using words, somehow you have to tap in. That's the mightiest thing. Like, the tongue is mighty and the sword.
Influences from both Biggie and both Tupac, you guys could just really lay it to rest in this record. Can I know more about like how they affected you musically?
Well, you know, Tupac and Big, I feel, were the most important rappers of all times. You know what I'm saying? Just the emotion that they, you know, draw from the streets has never been matched, and it never will be. So if you're looking for that, you'll play yourself. But, you know, just as a fan of the culture, you know, what they brought to the game, you know, on BIG side, from the style and the lifestyle and the culture and the way he put it on the screen, it was unparalleled. And Tupac, the message and the power and the voice, and he showed you the potential. You know, as a young black dude coming from, you know, some of the roughest streets in America, the potential that's in you that you just got to pull out. I think that just inspired everybody on some kind of level. So, just watching them dudes, watching Tupac, the amount of music he put out, that's why you see the way, you know, we work. You know what I'm saying? I believe, you know, you got to follow that creed.
There is another song by Rick Ross and French Montana where they really tapped into Biggie's energy on a metaphysical level. On this track, Rick Ross just showed out with his channeling connection to Biggie Smalls. The song is titled Nobody and has excerpts of Puff Daddy ranting about becoming a supreme being on earth. And Biggie wanted me to mention the rapper Shyne. Shyne had a similar voice to Big, but he really wanted to sound distinctly different from Biggie, but he did use the energy on a few of his songs. The main song was Bad Boy with Barrington Levy, and that actually turned out to be one of Shyne's biggest songs. I think Shyne had a past life connection with Puff Daddy, Biggie, and Lil' Kim. Shyne is the only black rapper I've heard to claim himself as an Orthodox Jew. I think that is a subconscious memory of his past life. So Shyne channeled Biggie Smalls, but not to the level of Rick Ross and Jay-Z. This is how rappers tap into the energy of another deceased artist in order to amplify the energy in their music. Couldn't play some songs because of copyright issues, but if you're a rap fan and you want to hear a few songs where the energy of Big was channeled, there were many, far too many for me to put here, but I'm just going to list a few that Biggie was very enthusiastic about people knowing. Alright, so one we know is Brooklyn We Go Hard by Jay-Z. Biggie also infused his energy in the American Gangster album. And then I'll give you two songs by Rick Ross. Nobody featuring French Montana, and BMF, I Think I'm Big Meech. Alright, so we're gonna leave it there, y'all. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. If you feel like the content on my channel is life-changing, feel free to send some of that love energy back by donating $1 on Cash App to Rapmythology. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. It's the reincarnation of Ramakrishna, a Hayoka empath, and I'm kicking brand new flavor in your ear, that brand new flavor in your ear.